All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into the world of Gluco6. This supplement is making some pretty bold claims about healthy blood sugar, weight loss, the whole nine yards. But you know us, we're not just going to take their word for it. We're going beyond the marketing hype, looking at the science, the ingredients, and really trying to understand what this product is all about. Of course, the standard disclaimer: this is not medical advice. It's just a deep dive into the information they're giving us and, hopefully helping you guys become more informed consumers.
Absolutely. It's all about asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Right? And I got to say, this sucre thing they're leading with, that definitely piqued my interest.
Yeah, that caught my eye too. It's like a special sugar that helps regulate blood sugar. Okay, I'm intrigued, but before we even get into whether that's legit or not, maybe you can give us a little blood sugar 101. How does this whole system actually work?
Okay, so think of it this way. When you eat, your body breaks down carbs into glucose.
Yep.
And glucose is basically sugar's, best friend. And it needs to get into your cells to give you energy, right? But it can't just get in there all willy-nilly. It needs insulin.
Okay, so insulin is like the key.
Yeah, exactly. Insulin signals to the cells, it's like, hey, open up, let the glucose in, time to party. And usually this whole system works pretty well. But when you have too much sugar, too much glucose, it's like a mob trying to get through the door all at once. Insulin can't keep up and things get a little chaotic.
And that's when you get the dreaded sugar crash.
Exactly. That's the crash.
We've all been there. So where does this sucre thing fit into this whole scenario? Are they saying it can somehow control the flow of glucose into the cells?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? They're claiming that it slows down sugar absorption. And in theory, that could lead to a more gradual rise in blood sugar.
Yeah.
Prevent those dramatic spikes and crashes.
So it's like sucre is the bouncer telling everybody, all right, one at a time, let's keep things moving smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. We need to see the science. What kind of studies have they done? Did they compare sucre to other sugars? Was this tested in humans? These are the questions we need to be asking.
Always be asking. Don't just take their word for it, right? Be a little bit of a science detective. Now, sucre isn't the only thing that caught my attention. They also mentioned these GLUT4 receptors, which they're linking to longevity, like living longer. I felt like I was reading a science fiction novel.
Oh, I know. It sounds a little out there, right?
Yeah.
But GLUT4 receptors are actually really interesting. So remember those doors on the cells that let glucose in? Well, GLUT4 is like the security guard at those doors. When insulin shows up, it signals to GLUT4, and those doors swing wide open for glucose.
Ah, so it's not just insulin, it's this whole chain of command.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really fascinating, especially if we're thinking about aging. There's more and more research suggesting that the better these GLUT4 receptors are working, the better our cells can manage glucose. And that can have a ripple effect on our overall metabolic health, which is linked to how well we age.
Okay, so it's not about living forever, but it's about keeping those glucose pathways, running smoothly as we get older. But they did mention a Harvard study. Are they suggesting that we can all just tweak our GLUT4 receptors and live to be 150?
Well, hold on, not so fast. First of all, we need to be cautious about extrapolating from animal studies to humans, right? What works for a lab mouse doesn't always translate to us. Plus, even if GLUT4 plays a role, it's just one piece of the longevity puzzle.
Right. It's like telling someone who wants to run a marathon to just focus on their shoelaces. Important, yes, but there's a lot more to it. So I guess the takeaway here is intriguing research definitely has potential implications for aging, but we need to see more research specifically in humans before we start making any, crazy predictions.
Exactly. And this is a great example of how marketing can take a scientific concept, even a very early finding, and turn it into a story that might be a little ahead of the actual science.
Okay, listeners, take notes. Be wary of the hype, look for the evidence, and don't believe everything you read about magical anti-aging receptors. Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the Gluco6 formula itself. They're highlighting 6 key ingredients: sucre, which we've already touched on, and then ticrine, ginema, chromium, cinnamon, and green tea. Some of these I've heard of, some of them I haven't.
Yeah, it's a mix of ingredients with, I'd say, varying levels of scientific backing. And I have to say, the descriptions they provide are a little bit vague. For example, they mention ticrine supporting healthy blood sugar, but they don't really elaborate on what that means or what evidence they have to support that claim.
Yeah, and then there's ginema, which they say helps maintain healthy GLUT4 receptors. Again, sounds impressive, but what does the science actually say?
Well, let's start with Jamima. It's actually been used in traditional Indian medicine for centuries, and there's some emerging research suggesting it might have blood sugar lowering effects.
Oh, wow, really? So ancient wisdom meets modern science.
Well, some studies, and I emphasize some because we need more research, suggest that Jamima might reduce glucose absorption in the intestines and maybe even stimulate insulin production. But we're still in the early stages of understanding how it works.
Okay, so it's not just some random herb they threw in there. There's actually a history and some scientific curiosity around it. What about teocrine? I gotta be honest, I've never even heard of that one.
So teocrine is a compound found in certain tea leaves. And it's become a pretty popular ingredient in energy drinks and supplements lately.
Oh, so it's like, the new caffeine. But what about their claims about blood sugar?
Yeah, that's where things get a little murky. The research on teocrine's direct impact on blood sugar is still pretty limited. There are some studies indicating it might influence energy metabolism, maybe have a mild stimulatory effect, but its role in blood sugar regulation is not fully understood yet.
Interesting. So it seems like there's a bit of a pattern here. Intriguing ingredients, some traditional use, some early research, but we definitely need more evidence to confirm their specific benefits for blood sugar control.
Right, and it's a good reminder that just because an ingredient has a long history, or maybe shows some promise in early studies, doesn't guarantee it'll work as advertised, especially in a specific product like this.
All right, everybody, I hope you're taking notes. Always dig a little deeper, look beyond the marketing claims, and be a savvy consumer, right? Now, before I move on to the next part of our Gluco6 investigation, I'm curious, have you ever come across any of these ingredients in your own research?
You know, I actually have. I came across Jamima when I was researching natural remedies for metabolic health. It's fascinating how ancient wisdom often kind of intersects with modern scientific inquiry, even if the evidence base is still developing. How about you? Have you encountered any of these ingredients?
You know, it's funny. I'm a total cinnamon addict. I put it on everything. I had no idea it was being studied for its potential effects on blood sugar.
It is. There's some evidence, although the mechanisms aren't completely clear. But it seems like cinnamon might improve insulin sensitivity and help lower blood sugar levels.
Okay, so maybe my cinnamon obsession isn't so crazy after all. But speaking of things that might be a little misleading, let's talk about those glowing testimonials on the Gluco6 website. You know, it changed my life. I lost 15 pounds in 2 months. They really know how to pull at your heartstrings. It's like they have a highlight reel of success stories, each one more compelling than the last. But let's be real for a second. These testimonials, they might be heartwarming, but they're not exactly scientific evidence, are they?
You're absolutely right. Testimonials are powerful because they tap into our emotions, right? Our desire to see ourselves in those success stories. But they're inherently anecdotal. What works for one person doesn't necessarily mean it'll work for everyone.
It's like saying, my friend's cousin's hairdresser lost 20 pounds on this diet, so it must be amazing. But we don't know the whole picture, right?
Exactly. We don't know if those individuals made other changes to their lifestyle, if they were taking other medications, or if their results were just a coincidence. Testimonials don't have the controlled environment of a scientific study.
So what are some red flags to look out for when we see these testimonials? How can we be savvy consumers and not get swept up in the feel-good stories?
Well, first of all, remember that testimonials are marketing material. They're very carefully selected to present the product in the most positive light possible. So you have to approach them with a healthy dose of skepticism. Look for specific details. What was the person's starting point? What were their goals? What other factors might be contributing to their results? And always consider the source. Is this a genuine customer review or is it a paid endorsement?
Okay, so don't just take those glowing reviews at face value. Dig a little deeper, ask the tough questions, and remember, just because it worked for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Now, it's not just the testimonials, right? The Gluco6 website is using a whole bunch of marketing tactics to, encourage us to buy.
Oh, absolutely. They're playing on our psychology, our desire for those quick fixes, that fear of missing out. Like, for example, that countdown timer they have at the top of the page. Talk about creating a sense of urgency.
Right, like, hurry, this amazing offer is going to disappear any minute. I almost feel like I need to click buy now before I even know what I'm buying.
Exactly. And then there are all those bonus digital guides they offer if you buy a bigger package. Nourish. Sweetly Slim. It's like they're saying, buy more, get more value.
It's that classic bundling tactic, right? Make the bigger purchase seem more appealing by throwing in some extra goodies.
Exactly. And of course, they really emphasize that 6-bottle option. It's the recommended option, it saves you the most money, and it gives you the best chance at achieving those long-term results they're promising.
It's all very strategically designed to nudge us towards that bigger purchase. But hey, maybe they genuinely believe in their product, you know? Maybe they really want to give us the best chance of success.
It's possible, sure. But as informed consumers, we need to recognize these tactics for what they are: marketing strategies designed to influence our behavior.
So it's not about being cynical, it's about being aware. Knowing the game so we can play it smart. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into Gluco6, let's take a step back and look at the big picture. We've explored the science behind some of their claims, we've dissected their marketing tactics, and I think we've all learned a few valuable lessons about being savvy consumers.
Absolutely. We've seen how science can be used in marketing and how important it is to really be discerning about all the information that's out there.
Right. It's about asking the right questions, looking for the evidence, and being aware of those psychological factors that are at play. Now, before we move on, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to think about. Imagine you were designing a blood sugar supplement. What would be your top priorities?
Ooh, that's a good question. For me, it would all start with scientific rigor.
Wow.
I'd want to see solid research, ideally human clinical trials, that demonstrate the safety and effectiveness of the ingredients.
So not just those preliminary studies or anecdotal evidence.
Exactly. I'd also prioritize transparency. Clearly, list all the ingredients, their dosages, explain how they work, and provide references to the scientific studies supporting those claims. No more vague descriptions or confusing marketing jargon.
Right. And finally, I'd want to focus on a holistic approach because blood sugar regulation is influenced by so many factors, right? Diet, exercise, sleep, stress, all of it. A truly effective supplement would acknowledge this complexity and provide support beyond just taking a pill.
I love that. It's not about quick fixes. It's about empowering people to take control of their health.
Exactly. Knowledge is power. And I think that by understanding the science and the marketing, we can make more informed decisions about our health and well-being. It's so well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this part of our deep dive into Gluco6. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little empowering. Remember, be curious, be critical, and be proactive when it comes to your health. Until next time, keep learning and keep exploring. Okay, so we've talked about the science, or at least the claims they're making about the science behind Gluco6. And we've touched on some of those marketing tactics they're using. But you know, there's one more piece of this puzzle I want to explore. It's something that always catches my eye, those glowing customer testimonials. You know what I'm talking about. Gluco6 changed my life. I finally have my blood sugar under control. I lost 10 pounds in a month. It's like a parade of success stories, each one more inspiring than the last.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Those testimonials can be really compelling, can't they? They make you feel like, hey, if it worked for them, maybe it can work for me too.
Right. It's like they're tapping into our hopes and dreams. But let's be honest for a second. These testimonials, while they might be heartwarming, they're not exactly scientific evidence.
No, they're not. Testimonials are powerful because they're personal stories, right? They appeal to our emotions, but they're inherently anecdotal. Just because something worked for one person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for everyone.
Exactly. It's like saying, my aunt's neighbor lost 20 pounds on this new diet, so it must be the best diet ever. Right. But we don't know the whole story, right? Maybe they were also exercising like crazy. Maybe they made other changes to their lifestyle. Or maybe it was just a coincidence.
Right, we don't know. And that's the problem with testimonials. They lack the controlled environment of a scientific study. So we can't really draw any firm conclusions from them.
So how can we be savvy consumers when it comes to these testimonials? What are some red flags to look out for?
Well, first of all, remember that testimonials are essentially marketing material. They're carefully selected to present the product in the most positive light. So you always have to approach them with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Okay, skepticism, check.
Right, and look for specific details. What was the person's starting point? What were their goals? Did they make any other changes to their lifestyle in addition to taking the supplement?
So not just taking those glowing reviews at face value.
Exactly. And always consider the source. Is this a genuine customer review? Or is it a paid endorsement?
Okay, so we're digging a little deeper, asking those critical questions, but I think it's important to remember that even if a testimonial is genuine, it doesn't necessarily mean the product is right for you.
Absolutely. We're all different. What works for one person might not work for another. So it's important to do your research, talk to your doctor, and make informed decisions about your health.
Could agree more. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the science, or at least the claims they're making about the science behind Gluco6. We've dissected some of their marketing tactics, and we've learned how to be a little more discerning when it comes to those glowing customer testimonials.
It's been a good deep dive.
It has. But before we wrap things up completely, I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to put on our creative hats for a moment and imagine that we were designing a blood sugar supplement. What would be our top priorities?
Ooh, that's an interesting challenge.
Right. If we were going to create something truly effective and trustworthy, what would that look like?
Well, for me, it would all start with the science. We would want to see robust clinical trials in humans, not just those preliminary studies or anecdotal evidence.
Okay, so we're setting a high bar for evidence.
Absolutely. We want to be able to confidently stand behind our product. And that means having solid scientific backing for our claims.
Makes sense. What else would be on our priority list?
Transparency. We would be completely transparent about our ingredients, their dosages, and how they work. We would provide references to the scientific studies supporting our claims. No more vague descriptions or confusing marketing jargon.
I love that. It's like, here's the science, folks. Check it out for yourselves.
Exactly. We want our customers to feel empowered to make informed decisions about their health.
But it's not just about the science, right? We've talked about how blood sugar is influenced by so many different lifestyle factors.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about taking a pill. It's about living a healthy lifestyle.
So how would we incorporate that into our supplement design?
Well, I think our supplement would be more than just a product. It would be part of a holistic approach to health and wellness.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
We could provide educational resources, maybe even a community forum where people can connect and support each other.
Oh, I love that. It's like creating a whole ecosystem around blood sugar health.
Exactly. And we would emphasize the importance of diet, exercise, stress management, all of those things that play a role in blood sugar regulation.
So it's not about quick fixes. It's about empowering people to take control of their health.
Exactly.
Wow, I'm really starting to get excited about this hypothetical supplement. Maybe we should actually start a company.
Maybe we should.
But for now, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive into Gluco6. We hope you found it informative and maybe even inspired you to think a little differently about blood sugar health.
And about the supplement industry in general.
Absolutely. Remember, be curious, be critical, and always keep learning. Until next time, keep exploring and remember that knowledge is your greatest asset when it comes to your health. Okay, so we've really taken Gluco6 apart piece by piece, haven't we?
We have. We've looked at the science, the marketing, the whole shebang.
And I think along the way, we've all learned a thing or two about being savvy consumers in this, sometimes wild world of supplements.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one thing that really stood out to me was just how much marketing there is out there that uses real science but doesn't always give you the complete picture.
It's like they're giving us a little taste of the science, just enough to make it sound convincing, but they're leaving out some key details.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to dig a little deeper, to ask the right questions.
Like, what kind of research is actually backing up these claims? Or how do these ingredients actually work in the body?
Right, and not just taking things at face value.
Exactly. And honestly, I think that's what I love about doing these deep dives. It's not just about accepting what we're told. It's about getting curious, exploring the nuances, and really becoming more informed.
I agree. And that question you asked earlier about designing our own blood sugar supplement, that got me thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if we were going to create something that was truly effective, that we could really stand behind, what would that look like?
I'm so glad you brought that back up, because it's one thing to, analyze what's already out there, but I think it's even more interesting to imagine what the ideal solution could be.
Absolutely.
So let's play that out for a second. We're the masterminds behind the next big blood sugar supplement. Where do we even begin?
Well, like I said before, scientific rigor, that's got to be the foundation.
Okay, science first.
Yeah. We'd want to see those large-scale clinical trials in humans, the gold standard.
Not just like a handful of small studies or anecdotal evidence.
Nope, not for this. We need to see that real solid evidence to back up any claims we're making.
Gotcha. So evidence-based. Check.
Definitely. And then transparency.
Ooh, I like that.
We'd be completely upfront about everything, our ingredients, the exact dosages, how everything works.
No hidden formulas, no mysterious blends.
Nope, full transparency.
That's fantastic.
And we'd provide references to all the scientific studies supporting our claims so people could actually go and check it out for themselves.
Okay, so we're talking full disclosure, showing our work.
Exactly.
But it's not just about the science itself, right? We've talked about how much lifestyle plays a role in blood sugar management.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge piece of the puzzle. It's not just about taking a pill. It's about living a healthy life.
So how would we incorporate that into our imaginary supplement?
Well, I think our supplement would be more than just a product. It would be part of a whole system.
A system.
Yeah, like we could have educational resources, maybe meal planning guides, exercise tips, stuff like that.
Oh, and maybe even like a community forum where people could connect and support each other.
Exactly. Create this whole ecosystem around blood sugar health.
That is such a cool idea. It's like you're not just buying a supplement, you're joining a movement.
Yeah, exactly. And it would all be built on that foundation of science and transparency.
Wow. I'm really starting to love this hypothetical company we've created.
Me too.
But for now, I think it's time to bring this deep dive to a close. We started with Gluco6, but I think we've explored so much more than that. We've talked about the science of blood sugar, the importance of critical thinking, and how to be more informed consumers.
We've even touched on the ethics of the supplement industry, which is a whole other can of worms.
It is, but I think the biggest takeaway for me is that knowledge is power. The more we understand about our bodies, about the products we're using, the better equipped we are to make decisions that support our health.
I couldn't agree more.
So, to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking those questions, keep learning, and keep taking control of your health. We'll see you next time.